We've now completed the second week of the blessed month of Kiyek, which is called the Marian month, in which in the church we celebrate the praises, or we offer praises to the Lord, and we offer praises to the Virgin in celebration of the incarnation, or the coming of the taking of the flesh of the Lord. When you look at this story, or this gospel passage, sometimes when you take it at face value, you don't want to just isolate Saint Mary in the story. We don't want to just isolate Saint Mary. We want to find ourselves in the story and understand how we can reach the favor of God. How we can reach the point where we reach the favor of God. And in today's gospel, you see a few things that the Virgin Mary was called. Number one, it mentions her virginity. What is the virginity? Is it only a virginity of the body? When God looked upon her and said, and there was a virgin whose name was Mary, is it only a bodily virginity that gave her the supremacy above all other women in all of creation? Was she the only virgin at the time? But yet it highlights her virginity because it's talking about something much deeper than the virginity of the body. What's implied when it's talking about the virginity of Saint Mary is that she was given to God, and that she was given over to God, and that she was not given to anything else. She was not given to the world. She was not given to man. She was not given to anything in her life other than to God. And I began to ask myself, can I have this virginity? Whether celibate, whether married, whether you have children, whatever it is you may be, can you be a virgin in the eyes of God? What would give you that virginity? What would give you that virginity is one who is given over to God. And how would you measure whether you are given to God or not? How much have you given over to God in the different areas of your life? How much have your finances been given over to God? How much have your relationships been given over to God? You see, one who is a virgin is one that has kept herself only for the Lord. She's only kept herself and her body and her whole life only for the Lord. And so it's easy to be able to dismiss ourselves from the story, because you might say, well, I don't have this virginity of the body. But the virginity is something that can be attained in a much deeper way. You see, God isn't looking at just the body, but it was the virginity of one who has given themselves over to God. You know, sometimes I find as we share in the Bible, or we preach in the Bible, we'll be in gatherings and we'll say something that might be a little bit intense, something that might give us a higher standard. And you find the faces of many take a step back and they say, well, I don't know if that applies to me. I don't know if I can accomplish that givenness over to God, that I can give that same yes to God in the way that many people in the Bible had given their yeses over to God. You see, St. Mary gave her yes over. And she was a yes person to the Lord. That she came to a point where she said, let it be to me according to your word. I only want what is in your word. You see, I haven't chosen anything over for myself. I'm just waiting, and I'm waiting earnestly that you would give me the command. And there are many others who don't want to hear the command, because I've given myself over to many other things. I've given myself over to things that have nothing to do with God, things that are of the world, things that are of my own passions, that I'm not waiting to hear what God has to command. And St. Mary says, let it be to me according to your word. You see, all I'm doing is I'm waiting for what your word has to bring, because You see, St. Mary witnessed. She had witnessed in the lives of all the people in the whole Old Testament what their yeses had brought them. You see, Abraham, his yes had brought him an Isaac, had brought him into this deep, intimate fellowship with God, that he would never, ever come to a place where he would say no to God. When it got to the point where God had asked Abraham to offer his Isaac, it was an immediate yes. Because in his experience in his life, he knew that his yes brought great fruit in his life. It only brought good things. And you see, St. Mary had this faith that her givenness over to God, her yes to God, was only going to bring fruit. Her virginity also implied an integrity, a godly integrity. Integrity is so rare to find these days. You know, who you are when no one is looking. That shows your integrity. That when you find that somebody does something that it's not natural to society. You find some money on the floor and you go and you look for who is the owner of the money. Who cares? Just pick it up and put it in your pocket. It's a gift from God. There are people that have this integrity. I remember when I was first ordained, it was like one of the very first confessions I ever took. And she comes, and this lady comes and sits with me. She says, Abuna, I have to tell you a story. She starts crying. She says, I went to Walmart, and I had some stuff, and I went into line, and I was going to pay, and one of the employees came, who happened to be a member of the church, and he says, let me put in my code, and gave her a discount for the stuff. Gave her a discount for the stuff, and she was grateful. She said, okay, what a gift from God. This is so nice, whatever. And then she remembered, oh, I forgot something. So she went back into the aisle and got it. And then she went back to the same aisle. And the guy that was at the stand said, oh yeah, you were the friend of the employee. Let me give you another discount. And she came and she was crying to me. She said, Abuna, I feel like I stole. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my mind, God gave you a gift. And she's saying, no, Abuna, I stole. I took something that I didn't deserve. I got an employee discount. I'm not an employee. And I said, wow. Look at the purity and the integrity of this heart. You see, this integrity to God goes such a far way. God is looking for those that are of the stature of integrity. Because those people are the ones in whom God will be born. Those are the ones in whom God will be born and will be able to present God to the whole world. You see, I would love to have been chosen to be like St. Mary. That I would be the one that God would say, you are the one that is going to bear God, and you are the one that is going to bring Him to the whole world. I wish that would be me. You see, there are many annunciations in our lives. There wasn't just one annunciation. You see, every season of your life, there's going to be an annunciation. That God wants you to be His vessel in this season. And you wait for the annunciation. You wait for the angel of the Lord to come and to say, you are going to bear the Son of God in this circumstance. I want you to think about the circumstances of your life today. I want you to think about if you're going through a problem, if you're grieving in any way, if you are struggling with something, if somebody, one of your loved ones, is going through a very difficult time. Ask yourself if God is announcing to you that you would be the bearer of the Son of God. That you would bring the Son of God to that situation. That God would save, would bring His salvation through you to that situation. You see, God is looking to send His angel to be the announcer of every circumstance in your life. Every circumstance has an annunciation that He's looking for His Saint Mary to say, let it be to me according to your word. You see, she said, behold, the handmaiden of the Lord, I'm your servant. I'm not the servant of anyone else. I am your servant. I've given myself only to you. You see, in her words, there's also a receptivity. she was receiving whatever it was that God brought her way. You see, it was very difficult for a young Palestinian virgin girl to be pregnant in that day and age. To be pregnant without being married was going to bring a catastrophe. But she understood that she was receptive to what God had for her in her life. How much capacity do you have to receive the Son of God in you? How much capacity do you have to receive Him? You see, the Son of God is a big gift. He takes up a lot of room inside. How much receptivity do you have? How open? What's the capacity that you have for God to be able to receive Him and say, I have plenty of room in my heart for the Son of God. I am receptive and I'm willing to take anything that the Lord has to bring to me. You see, the Lord has so many things that He wants to bring. But sometimes, maybe the path is difficult to get there. Maybe the path is going to have some roadblocks along the way. You see, Joseph was able to be the king of the world, but he had to go through some roadblocks. Saint Mary brought salvation to the whole world, to all of mankind, but there had to be some roadblocks. She was going to be a virgin. She was going to be misunderstood even by her betrothed husband Joseph. She was going to be misunderstood by her society. She was going to go through some difficult times. Even a prophecy was told her that even a sword will pierce your side because of the difficulty of seeing her son on the cross. How receptive are you for the things of God? How much capacity do you have in your life? We say, Lord, I don't know if I have much room for you anymore. And so I begin to get rid of baggage, the attachments of my heart, these things that are attaching me so much that I have no capacity to receive the great things of God. Imagine that when He promised her, He says, He will be great. You will conceive in your womb and bring forth a son and shall call his name Jesus. He will be great. You have to receive, in order to receive great things, you have to have this virginity and be ready for the annunciations. Today the Lord is looking for His virgins. He's looking for those that are virgins in the ways of the world. Their hearts are purified from the ways of the world. Their minds aren't cunning. They are not deceived. They are not corrupted. Maybe my thoughts are always corrupted. My intentions are corrupted. They have this corruption in them. There's always like this conspiracy going on in my mind. I'm always seeing the negative side of things. Say, Lord, I want to receive the great things of God. Remove from my heart this corruption. Remove that I could be the bearer of the Son of God. Today, I want to be that virgin. And I want each and every one of us. God is looking for His virgins. Imagine if today you could look to the icon of Saint Mary. You know, why do we say, Hail to Saint Mary, after the Catholic epistle and before the Acts response? After the Catholic epistle and before the Acts response, because she is the icon of humanity. She is the icon, she is our icon of the gospel, of one who fulfilled the gospel. So when we look to Saint Mary, we are preparing for the gospel, one who fulfilled the message of the gospel. Today she is your icon. Today you are called to be a virgin. Don't limit your virginity to that of the body. There are many people who are virgins, maybe according to the flesh, but not according to the heart. So are they still virgins? Are they still virgins in the eyes of God because their bodies have virginity, but their hearts have been given over to many harlotries, many wicked things, many things of the world? Today, that's the virginity that God is looking. It's the virginity of integrity. It's the virginity of being given over to God, a givenness to God. And lastly, it's the virginity of having the capacity to receive something that is great. there are going to be roadblocks in order to live a great life, in order to be something great in the eyes of God. Those that are honored by the Lord, those who will receive great things from God, are those who have the capacity to receive Him. So I need to begin to unload a little bit. Christmas, what are we doing right now? We're loading up, filling up with the presents and the gifts and the shopping and the online and the this and that. We're loading up. Where is there going to possibly be room for the Lord? How much capacity will you have for Him to be born in you? Born in me to do what? Why was He born in St. Mary? Was it just for St. Mary? It was to be the bearer of the Son of God to the world. To present the Son of God for the salvation of all of mankind. You cannot be the Virgin Mary if you will not bring Him to the world. If you will not bring the Lord to the world, you cannot follow the icon of St. Mary. I pray that today God would find His virgins. God would seek His virgins. That Christ Himself would be born in us. And the great news to the world would say that God has found His virgins that will bear the Son of God and spread Him out throughout the whole world, because light will come into the world through you and me. Through the church, light will come into the world. And glory be to God forever. Amen.